Well, thank you, Neil, for inviting me to share a little bit about my experience being home educated. So my name is Josh Starr. You may be able to tell I'm not from around here. I don't know if any of you picked up on that already. But I've been living in Scotland for about 2.5 years now. I come from Oklahoma, which is right in the middle of the States. My family is a ministry family, so I've grown up in and around the church all of my life. So just to give you a little bit of background on what my education was like. I went to a private Christian school to begin my education, and I went there until the equivalent of, I think it would be P2 here. And my older brother went to the Christian school a bit longer than I did. But when my younger brother was coming up, he was going to be going into school, and my parents just realized this is not financially viable for us. It's just too expensive to send all three of our boys to this private Christian school locally. So with a lot of prayer and tears, my parents decided they were going to start home educating. And those first few months were pretty rough. I don't particularly remember because I was like 7 or something, but my mom certainly does. They say it usually takes around 1 month per year of school to adjust to home education. So for me, it was really only about a month or two, but my older brother took a lot longer. And my mom went from being not a teacher to a teacher of 3 boys, so a much bigger adjustment for her. So what did a normal day look like for us? A normal day looked like starting off with reading the Bible and praying. Then we'd usually read history together, which sometimes Bible and history kind of intersected anyways when you're studying more ancient history. And then from there, each of us would split off into our individual subjects that we were working on. And whenever there was a subject we needed help with, or we needed mom to teach it, and she was busy with one of our other brothers, we'd simply just move on to a different subject until she was ready. I think it's great because it allows us a lot of flexibility in our schedules to just get things done. We don't have to wait for anyone else to do my math homework. We generally operated from about 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., so about 4 hours a day. That was it. I made all of my public school friends very jealous that I could sleep in till 9 a.m. and still get out of school before they did. My school uniform usually consisted of pajamas, and I did have to walk barefoot all the way to school, straight from my room to the living room. And as we got older, we relied on mom less and less to give us direct help in our studies from day to day. And we became self-managed. We actually, going into high school, we got to help pick out our own curriculum. There was an annual convention every year in Oklahoma that was like 4 days, thousands of people, and it rented out the biggest stadium in Oklahoma, which just shows you how many homeschoolers there are there. And every year, me and my brothers would get excited because, there'll be so many curriculums there that we can go look at and see how we want to learn. And I think that flows into what I would say is one of the most appealing parts of home education, which is that home education allows for personalized education to each student. Me and my brothers had vastly different learning styles and paces. And all of those were able to be accommodated. So I was quite good at maths, which I'm going to just refer to as math from here on out because I cannot say maths consistently for the life of me. And no one has explained why it's called that over here to me. But I was quite good at math, so I used a curriculum called The Life of Fred, which, I kid you not, is a series of books about a 5-year-old math genius who teaches at Kitten's University and gets involved in things such as conspiracy theories, or conspiracies in the government, He ended up in foster care at one point by accident in Australia and found his long-lost sister on a military base, all while teaching practical math lessons along the way. One of my friends who was also home educated, he was also going through this, and even though he was a year younger than me, he was like 2 years ahead of me in this, and every time I'd be like, I cannot believe this happened to Fred's. And we found the cube root of 125 at the same time. And he's like, oh, just wait till the next chapter. You know, he was always egging me on, like, oh, just wait till you see what happens next when you have to deal with, I don't know, geometry. It's very silly and engaging, but it was also quite demanding and really required you to pay attention and work hard at the few but tough math problems you had to solve. My brothers, on the other hand, needed something a bit more straightforward than something like that. And so they used a curriculum called teaching textbooks, which just taught math in a really straightforward way. In my personal opinion, in regards to students who get really bored at school, which happens a lot, especially with really intellectual kids, you know, teachers just say, oh, they're not good kids, they can't focus. It's not that they can't focus. For a lot of them, it's just that they're bored. And I personally think this is actually a really good solution for them because they can engage with material at their level, at their pace. And it also doesn't run the risk of them feeling like, oh, they're so far behind their year group because, again, they're at their level, their pace, not being compared to all these other students. Now, there's a couple of questions that come up when you're home educated. And for any of you who have home educated here, you'll have heard these before. One question is, how will the kids socialize? And it is a valid concern, but the reality is, for me and my brothers, we were in church at least twice a week with other kids. And we were also in scouts and martial arts, and we hung out with other home educators. So we were not lacking opportunities to socialize at all. And while that question isn't unfounded, I would like to recognize the point that not all socialization is good. We missed out on getting bullied for the most part. We had so much less social pressure to fit in with all the other students around us. We liked that we could stand out. We liked that we weren't like other kids who were disrespectful and, you know, things like that. And we were not introduced to harmful ideas from other kids or teachers nearly as often. It doesn't mean that never happened at all, because it certainly did. You know, my older brother, learned the F word from one of his friends who was at the private Christian school when he was in 3rd grade. So it certainly didn't stop happening, but it happened so much less. It was never a constant worry for my parents or for me, because I was quite sensitive to stuff like that. Another thing that is commonly asked with varying degrees of tact, usually directed at the mother, is, are you really qualified to teach your children all the subjects they need to know? I mean, was my mom qualified to teach? She didn't have a degree in education, and she certainly hadn't done anything like this before. But when I was 7 years old, could I tell? No. I couldn't tell that she wasn't qualified. No one told me she wasn't qualified. I just accepted, this is school now. You know, sometimes we learn things in really unconventional ways. And one thing that really sticks out in my memory is that when we learned about the Earth and the moon's orbit and how that all worked, because there were 3 of us, Mom took one of us and situated us in the middle of the room, said, you are the sun. Took another one of us and said, okay, you are the Earth. Now the Earth spins like this around the sun. So we're spinning like this, right? And then we take the 3rd brother. It's like, all right, now you're the moon. You can see where this is going. That was a very dizzying and memorable lesson. And honestly, when I think about rotation of the Earth, that is the thing that comes to mind. Very unconventional. Was there a more practical or optimal way to teach that? Probably, but it got the point across for us. Now, I personally believe it is harder to mess up your children's education than you think it is. So this last thing I want to talk about is I posed a question to my parents. Is there anything you want to communicate? Because I told them that I was going to be talking about this. And my mom sent me a very long voice message that I've had to condense into one paragraph. When she first got started, she got some advice from her best friend who was also home educating. And I'll share that with you now. And she said, make a list of all of the things you want your children to learn. And not just things like math or English, but things like, I want my child to learn how to be a self-learner. That was one of the biggest goals that my parents set, and I can say personally that they succeeded. I honestly didn't even know they set that goal for me until I was preparing this. I learned this yesterday. That was a goal they set for me, and I would describe myself as a self-learner. Apparently, my mom made a list of 36 things that she wanted us to learn, and all of these were accomplished throughout our education. And this was news to me. I just learned that she had this infamous list. But pray and think through a list like this for your own children. So I can honestly say that being home educated was one of the best decisions my parents ever made for me. And that's not because home education is the solution to every problem, or that everyone should do it. Though I do hope I've sparked some interest for any of you who've never considered doing it before. But it was the greatest decision they've made for me because they knew what was best for me and my brothers. And specifically, I'm really grateful for both of my parents and my mom for all the big sacrifices that they took to do that for me. I know that I'm privileged to get to say that I spent every day, all day, more or less, with my mom. We have a lot of fun memories and some really tough ones. So I sure hope I haven't made home education sound easy, because it certainly is not for the parents or the children. But I do hope that I've made it sound worthwhile.